I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 10. Yes, nothing like finishing up a build. Well, not exactly finishing, but working on a build. I'm getting very close to what I would deem as a somewhat finished exterior. I still haven't worked on the floors or anything, but I have been working on this tower. So I spent some time in the Discord, believe it or not, live streaming. I do hang out there quite often, and I will live stream the active building of this. So definitely check out the Discord if you haven't already. And I was working on this tower live while hanging out with everybody in the voice chat. And so right here is kind of what I've come up with so far. Basically, I have some staining that is underneath the window, and all kinds of interesting stuff, right? And the idea is to paste this here. So I did use the destruction gadget to clear off the top of these towers, so that way I could use the copy paste tool to select this tower and paste it onto the other ones. And then I also used the copy paste tool and got this tree to grow, which was the perfect size. So I was like, you know what? I might as well copy and paste it, because I had all these other ingredients, or all the other components, right, that you get from chopping it down. And what's giving off the leaf effect, believe it or not, are these witch hazel blossoms. And so this is really pretty looking when you're walking through the center and you just see the leaf particles floating around. It just definitely sets the mood. Now, this has been some of my ideas related to the build that I'm currently working on, but I do want to work on mystical agriculture today. That's going to be the major component for today, and also why I was actually working on this room right here, or these rooms, I should say. And that's because these rooms are going to house our mystical agriculture, and I will consider mystical agriculture quote unquote magic. It feels like magic to me. It feels like a magic-ish mod. It kind of just generates resources from the earth, which in my opinion is kind of earth magic-y, which feels very, very nice. But it is going to have tech definitely built into it to get it to work. Now, my idea for these towers, jumping back to this, was to have like vines that wrapped up and then also continued some of the leaves that are surrounding in this witch hazel biome, and make it look like little flowers that are kind of bursting off of the vines. I even have different vine textures running through this. And by the way, at night it glows. Like these leaves, there's like some of the leaves right here that are blooming, and those actually emit light, which is super cool. But you can see right here, I am now pasting this in, but I do have it on a rotation, so that way the leaves are definitely pointing in a different direction. That's kind of the idea. This just looks so good. Okay, so there may still be a little bit of work in progress that's going to need to be done to more of these buildings, but I just want to go over a couple of the blocks that I use. These are ornate andesite pillars that are being used here, and then these are polished diorite that are basically scaling up every other block, giving this kind of like a intersection of a brick sort of structure where they're intersecting there. And then I'm using massive diorite bricks, and then I'm also using plain Jane calcite, and I'm also using a lot of those like large bricks, right? I do also have the calcite, massive calcite bricks up here. So mixing the diorite into the calcite gives this really nice like sort of dark into a much lighter color, which I think kind of fits really, really well into this whole build, and is kind of the idea. So outside of that, I am utilizing, if I can hover here, some of the crunchy moss blocks. And then these are andesite fine pillars. Of course, there's different kinds of pillars, polished andesite, and so on and so forth. Now, the inside hasn't been really touched or anything, but the inside of these, I'm actually planning on putting mob farms in. And that's sort of been my idea here, is to have mob spawners that are in this room, and I can utilize them for that purpose. As any more, mob spawners are really pivotal to playing mod packs. Oh man, I also noticed I might have missed some areas here with some trapdoors. By the way, I'm using archwood trapdoors for these, which give it like a little purple tint, but still on the gray side. I really like this. And I still haven't figured this out yet, but the capping for the top area here, I kind of want it to be a roof. And I'm thinking about potentially using the green wood that comes from the witch hazel logs. And it's got a really, really nice hue to it. Like this is a great looking block right here, just taking a look at it, and I think would fit the rest of this really, really well, having this sort of green, really, really dark, like shiny green. It really feels that way, mixed in with the orange that's going everywhere. Okay. Enough of that. Enough of the building stuff. Let's actually get into what is going to allow us to generate even more resources so we can continue to build and build and build. And that also includes build out our tech area that we have down here, which honestly really needs a helping hand. But this is what I set up basically last episode, right? So I ended up getting all of the applied logistics stuff set up so we can do auto crafting right from the start. And this is going to allow us to expand into mystical agriculture, believe it or not. So now let's talk about mystical agriculture and how are we actually going to make this a fast process? Because mystical agriculture crops are notoriously slow to grow. And so early game, there's really only a couple options. And one of the best options, in my opinion, is just using an applied logistics growth accelerator. This can grow any crops, but it can also grow mystical agriculture crops, believe it or not. And the way that we can actually power these growth accelerators is by using a single crystal resonant generator. And this is a generator that is really good for subnets for applied logistics, giving that subnet a little bit of power. And it generates 20 AE per tick, which is really, really good. Basically 40 FE per tick when converted. So when it's placed on here, you'll notice that this will start sending particles, but you'll notice it doesn't store any extra energy because this is actually providing just enough energy to keep the growth accelerator running. And so each one of these, when placed, is going to need its own crystal resonant generator, just like this. Now, there's a ton of different ways to format this. I would prefer to honestly have the resonant generators underneath, but this is going to work for now. Let's go ahead and grab a mystical agriculture seed. For example, an Inferium seed is one of the first seeds you probably want to get started with this mod. And we can go ahead and hoe the ground. I do have a water source nearby, and it went ahead and planted that Inferium seed. And we see it's growing, and it's growing at an okay pace. Bam, we just got ourselves some essence already. And yes, these growth accelerators need to grow the actual crop itself, not be placed on the actual farmland. So this works, but there's a way we can make this even faster. And that is by using red fertilizer. Now, red fertilizer I have used in like all the mods 9, for example, for setting up some really, really nice farms with lily pads, but lily pads are not really necessary right now and are also kind of expensive to get into in this pack. Those recipes have been changed. So here is another fantastic farm, and look how much faster this grows with that red fertilizer, right? So with the lily pads, yes, this will grow even faster, but this is already incredibly fast on its own. Some other things you can also use are crop supports. These are supposed to help a little bit more on the little journey here. So we place our seed down, and this is supposed to help it grow even faster, but I find this to honestly be a hindrance. So yeah, I would rather not use these crop supports and instead just go at it just the way we were by having it grow here. I haven't noticed a tremendous difference. Now you also may be wondering, Chosen, well, is it better to use the mystical agriculture soil, which is the soil that you could get, by the way, by placing the essence onto the soil? And to that, I did do some tests. So I set up this setup when I was playing a mod pack called FTB Evolution, which I've been playing over on Twitch, by the way. You can check that out, or check out the second channel, Chosen Live. If you didn't know, I do have a VODs channel, which has a ton of content on there that is outside of the main channel. But I tested it over there, and it turns out that it is not faster to do that. It may give you more essence per crafted harvest, but in the long run, it may be better just to have it producing faster than produce more slower. And especially later on, we probably don't want to use this on our other farmland because we want those crops to just be generated as fast as possible. And so giving a bonus on our output would be nice. I would say not necessary, because at the end of the day, this is so much easier to set up. And that red fertilizer, by the way, is pretty cheap to make. And that acceleration that you get from it is incredibly fast. And you cannot red fertilizer the mystical agriculture crops. Just to kind of demonstrate what that looks like, for example, I placed down the Inferium and notice this is changed. Yes, this will not accept the red fertilizer. And by the way, here's the recipe for red fertilizer. So if you already have an iron golem farm, you have the red dye ready to go. If you have a mob farm, you have the bone meal. Gold is just some nuggets and some seeds. So very easy to make it, and you get 4 per operation. Like, definitely red fertilizer is not going to be the thing that is going to be expensive. What's going to be expensive is crafting the growth accelerators and the resonant generators. So now that all of the explaining is out of the way and how this is going to work, we need to scale up our infrastructure and come up with a design that's going to look pretty good for this. Because you know what, my friends, this is tileable. So yes, we can use the copy paste gadget and we can tile this with that, instead of just placing it all in by hand. So I think at the moment, this is the quote unquote meta way to grow our mystical agriculture crops. Basically what you see behind me. Later on though, there are other ways. It is a little bit more expensive to do the hydroponic beds. Hydroponic beds, to get them really, really fast, they essentially need to use ether gas. So ether gas is something that's definitely not early per se, as you do need to essentially milk the wither, basically. So this right here is going to be more than fine, I think, getting started. Now we just got to find a way to harvest things. And right, almost forgot, there is another technical way that you can grow these crops, and this can actually be a really nice way of doing it, but I don't think it's going to be as fast as this method right here. And that is using garden cloches, because all the mods actually provide support for the garden cloches in here. However, it is a little bit more expensive, I would say, to use garden cloches. Not only do you have to get into immersive engineering to get the cloches, they are all going to need a subset of power. They all need to be provided water, but the seeds have to match their tier. So if you, for example, make a tier 4 seed, you need to make sure you have the right farmland or higher in there, or you will not be able to farm that crop. So it just ends up adding more and more steps. And at the end of the day, I don't think I want to hand place 1,000 different types of seeds into a GUI. So back to how we're going to harvest. Well, at first, I think using a harvest pylon is going to be one of the best ways to harvest our crops early on. And the reason is because we can use a diamond hose, for example, in here, and it will take durability for right now, but this can cover a 9x9 area, up to a 9x9. That is quite a lot of space for us to sort of play with. And this behind me demonstrates what that 9x9 actually looks like as far as what crop space we're going to have the ability to work with. Now, the number of growth accelerators and crystal resonant generators for this setup is going to be 60 of each. So I can go ahead and do a little bit of math here. We have the resonant generator, so applied resonant generator. I need 60, but I already have 4, so I'll do -4. I love that I can do math in here. Super, super easy. Hit next, and do we have enough for this? Yes, and we can go ahead and now start that Autocraft. So this makes this tremendously fast. Now, I don't want to have my growth accelerator just for aesthetic purposes, and then I don't want to have my crystal on top of it. This does look cool, but I can't actually see the crop, and this also causes another issue where you're going to have dark spots potentially where crops may not grow. And so to prevent that, I'm thinking, what if I do this? What if I take the accelerator and I put the resonant on the bottom? And what I can do is I can basically hide that resonant generator. And I can do that with the exchanging gadget. So by having this in the current position that it's in, facing upside down, I can start to place this in like so. And then whenever I'm ready, I can just directly on top of here, place in my growth accelerators. And this should look pretty cool. And honestly, it's not that much more difficult to place that in, making, I think, a much cleaner look. But yeah, all personal preference. I don't know. I just prefer the look of the actual growth accelerator there. So the pattern that we're going to be dealing with is just placing this all the way around all of the crops positions. So all of these other free spaces need to be completely surrounding these pieces of dirt. Now, this is just where things start to look really, really cool. So I'm getting all of these placed in, and then we can start to decorate around this and make it look a little bit nicer. But this farm is going to last us a really long time. This is just going to be one example of our farms here. Because we will probably end up placing multiple of them. This is just going to be dedicated to making Inferium Essence. Now, something I want to mention, don't forget, you can vein mine and actually hoe all of the connected dirt here. So that's what I've done. But now I got to place in the red fertilizer. We've almost got everything ready to go now. So yeah, we are about to start generating a ton of Inferium Essence. So let's go ahead and feed that harvest pylon. We just need to provide it with some hose. And for right now, I'm going to use diamond hose inside of its inventory. And it will take durability, by the way, on these. But the goal is to be able to put an unbreakable hoe in here eventually. Or we can switch over to modular routers, which I think will be way faster. And if we use a scythe with modular routers, we can cover this entire area on the harvesting front, and it's actually a lot faster. But that's something to work on down the road. Now, this definitely needs a storage, and the cool part about limited storages is you can place them facing upwards, whereas the functional storage doesn't have a direction. They always have to be facing horizontally. So this can face up, and for example, we can put things in it just like that, and we can see the limit or the value that fits this whole area. And so with the inventory on top and the hose in here, it says the pylon is working and it's looking for harvestable crops. So let's give it some crops to harvest. And there we go. It's full and it's already started to produce essence. Now, this is where I said that it is not the fastest in the world. It is fast enough, but it is definitely not the fastest or faster than modular routers, because notice this is staying fully grown even for a short period of time, whereas with modular routers later on down the road, this would instantly be harvested as soon as it was ready. Oh, and by the way, we definitely want to take this up to netherite tier. So there we go. Nice and dark looking. And by the way, the basic storage for a netherite upgrade is 10,000, but the real power comes in how many extra slots you get for your stack upgrades. Now, I'm not going to be using a limited barrel on this forever, because I would honestly rather use a normal barrel that has a compacting upgrade. So that way we could just be turning this into blocks, because there is going to be some auto crafting that's going to have to take place, and it's going to involve the blocks later on. And if you've ever played with mystical agriculture, you are going to recognize that we have to use a thing called an infusion crystal to convert the essences up the tiers. Thankfully, this can all be handled with applied energistics, and we don't really have to worry about it too much. We can even autocraft the production of the master infusion crystal, which requires supremium essence, and we can automate that process before we can get to the block conversion, because you have to have a master crystal in order to do the block version upgrading. For example, this right here. Notice the master infusion crystal right here has the blocks wrapped around. And there's also going to be other ways that we can do this, right? So we have another thing called a regular infusion crystal, and this is one you have to start with, and it has durability where this one does not. But both of them can be used inside, like I said, of the applied energistics system. Now, moving forward, I'm going to need quite a few seeds. Just like you see here, I'm collecting a few of those by just, vein mining a bunch of grass nearby. Now, I think in total, this leaves me with 45 individual crop farm slots, and I have 3, so I'm going to need 42. I think we'll have enough to fill this entire area with the inferium. Yeah, there's 40, 41, a few more essence, and perfect. Now I have 42. So I just need to fill this entire area with the inferium, and this is where this farm is really going to start going crazy. Just so you understand why we're going to need to work our way into an unbreakable tool. Yeah, the durability on here is just being chewed away. This diamond hoe is already about to break. You can see right there. Now, I know that you probably don't want to see a whole lot of auto crafting or how things are crafted, but I do want to talk about some really cool features that applied energistics really does handle well. And this is one of them, right? So crafting this essence, right? All we have to do is specify, hey, this is how you craft an infusion crystal. That's pretty straightforward. Let me actually make some more patterns, right? This is really straightforward. We're just going to basically have it craft those crystals. But the power really comes into play here when we start to tell it, hey, use these crystals, right? So this is where things get a little bit interesting, and not everything that can autocraft can actually do stuff like this. So notice it pulls the infusion crystal in. If I put substitutions enabled, what it's going to do is it's going to allow it to use the durability of this item, which is super cool. And I can go ahead and assign this. And for right now, since we don't have a master infusion crystal, this prevents me from needing to do all of that manual crafting. And of course, the same goes for all of the other stuff. And just about any tool that gets used in a crafting recipe, this can do it, including the steel to hammer recipe that I showed in a few episodes ago. That, you can do it right here, and it will use the durability of all the mods hammers. Now, I did say a supremium hoe might be the best option, but if you already have the smithing template, which I haven't gone out and looked for yet, if you do have the smithing template, you can actually make an all-the-modium hoe and all of those materials are also unbreakable. But like I said, I think I want to go for a scythe. Now, I know I've been on the topic of how to get the crops to grow faster, but definitely don't forget that there are growth accelerators. While these are kind of expensive, to place underneath your crop. You can place up to 9 of the inferiums underneath the crop, and then you move to the predentium, place 18 of those underneath that, and then 27 of these underneath that, and so on and so forth, right? So you just keep like building on, but man, it really becomes quite the hassle placing that many of these, and they become very expensive. So yeah, but I mean, it will definitely accelerate your crop and make them incredibly fast. And I assume almost too fast if you also include the growth accelerators from the Applied Energistics mod. Now, prosperity shards. These are something that are kind of expensive and actually is one of the things that you cannot grow from mystical agriculture, right? There's not a prosperity seed. The way that I'm actually getting my prosperity shards, believe it or not, are coming from our quarry. So don't forget that I do have resources generating right here, and there have been a ton of prosperity shards generated in that time. And I've changed this location like 2 or 3 times, and this whole area right over through here has basically been completely quarried. You have served us well, little generator. Very, very well. Now, just in a short time of me setting up these autocrafts, we have already generated over 10,000 essence. Yeah, this sounds ridiculous, and it honestly is. These farms are incredibly fast, and which means I might only really need like 1 seed per crop type, at least to get us started. Okay, now hear me out. How much is your time actually worth? And that's where that question really shines with the auto crafting in Applied Energistics. And I can't express this enough. Just to kind of understand how long it would actually take to make the Supremium hoe. Like, I have the patterns inside of here, right? Just how much time it would take to actually craft this Supremium hoe is a lot. It takes a lot of manual crafting if you're going to do this. You'd have to craft the diamond hoe, then you would have to do the inferium, predentium. Not only that, you'd also have to make sure you're leveling up all of your essences. All of that would have to take place to be able to make this hoe. But this can all be done with auto crafting. And I just basically request 1, does a little bit of calculation. The bytes used up here is 7,000, and we have a 16,000 bit, I do believe bit or byte, I think it's bit, crafting storage. So we can support up to 16,000. And so, yeah, I can just simply hit the request button and it's going to automatically do that craft for us. And you can watch all of that processing happening right here on the fly. You can see it is crafting the crystals and the durability going down. What a beautiful thing to exist, especially when we have these really complex crafting trees. This has a really, really complex crafting tree. And we also get to see it, you know, crafting in here. Yeah, you can actually pull this open and you can see them crafting. Now, definitely putting speed upgrades in here makes this a whole lot faster. This operation will be almost instant. But yeah, for this amount of time and how far I'm into this mod, this is honestly so nice. And just like that, oh, bam, your mom is now crafted. Heck yeah. And we just need to put this into our farm. So this needs to go directly underneath here. And it's going to take the place of, well, I had this whole thing filled with hose, by the way. They're all gone. It's just going to take the place of that. And there we go. An absolute unbreaking hoe that apparently does 21 damage. That's a lot. But crafting that really fast is absolutely possible thanks to this farm. Now, after a little bit of auto crafting, this is where I get the master infusion crystal. This is really, really helpful. And what I really want to do now is I want this to no longer be a spruce barrel, but instead, I think I want it to be still a spruce barrel, but not a limited version of it. I love how I completely messed up what I was saying there. But yes, I don't want it to be a limited spruce barrel. I want it to be a regular barrel that has a compacting upgrade. That way we can just turn it into blocks. Oh, and by the way, you can actually tape these barrels up and yeah, we can pick them up and move them. For example, I can mine this away and there we go. I can bring this anywhere I want. So here we go. Boop. Perfect. And put the compacting upgrade in here and this will automatically convert it into inferium blocks, which will be so much easier for our Applied Energistics system to calculate and to also craft. So now at this point, I want to start expanding our seed productions. And this is going to require a new sort of setup that is called an Infusion Alter. And whenever you place an Infusion Alter, you get our lovely pedestals just like this. But this is a very manual process, even though it does have inputs and outputs, right? You can insert into here with a hopper and you can pull out with a hopper, and same for all of the pedestals. But doing that means you have to open a hopper over and over again which, yeah, it can be kind of annoying. So what we can do is we can set up a few modular routers here to simplify this process. And the reason I want to use modular routers is because it's a way of honestly sending items from one location to another wirelessly, and it's super, super easy to set up. Now, one important thing to note, underneath the Infusion Alter, you do need to apply a redstone signal. So a redstone block will work in this case, or you can use a lever or what have you, but you do need to be giving this a redstone signal in order for this to craft. So let's go ahead and get this set up. First things first, let's talk about getting a seed into the Infusion Alter. And I think right here will be perfectly fine. Now, modular routers have a single buffer slot or a single inventory slot. And we need to think of it from that perspective of the inventory slot. So if I'm going to put an item in here manually, I want it to send to the Infusion Alter. So how I can do that? I can use something called a sender MK2 or Mark II module. And what this does is the Mark II is wireless, and then there's a Mark III, which will go cross-dimensionally, but the wireless one is all we need for this setup. And to link it to an inventory, you just shift right click, and you will just place that marker on the position that you want the item to go into. And so now if I put that sender module in here, anything that goes in this buffer is now going to be tried. It's now going to try to send an item to that location. And so if I make myself a prosperity seed and I put it in here, you'll see that that prosperity seed is now inside of the altar. Now I also want to be able to pull out of here. So I think a good way to do this is to go down in the bottom, and we can use a puller MK2, which is a wireless puller. And this is going to act like a hopper. And so I'm going to put the puller, which will receive the product, back here. And anything that is completed in this, which thankfully it has a separate output slot, will end up in here. So this is where our result will be. Now, as far as all of the other sides, this is where things get kind of cool, because there's a distributor module, which in my opinion is one of my favorite things, allowing you to select up to 8 individual inventories that you can interact with, whether that is sending or pulling. And there's also distribution settings where you can change whether it's round robin, random, or first, nearest first, and furthest first. Like, there's all kinds of cool options here. Round robin being just fine for this situation. Nothing else we really need to worry about. So typically with any of the recipes, you have 4 items and 4 essence to make the seed. So in this case, I can take this modular router and I can select 4 inventory slots. And I'd like to be fancy with it, just like this. And then we need to make sure our setting is transferring out of router. And so it is. And we just place this in here. And now on the other one, we just want to select all of the other ones that we didn't select on the first distributor module. And this is basically it. So that way we can put essence on this side, blocks on this side, and we should be able to easily craft any of our essences. Well, I mean, not essences, seeds. So honestly, what seeds should we actually make? And I'm going to say to this, just make them all. Just try your best to make all of them. They're all going to be worth it. Now, they do come in different tiers. For example, you're going to want air, earth. You're definitely going to want water and fire. These are some of the best seeds to make early on. Also, stone, dirt. All of these are really great because they have combinations of recipes for their essences, allowing you to make like sand and also make gravel and all kinds of other different things. And the water essence, for example, makes making concrete easier. Just a whole lot of quality of life come from these early seeds. So now let's make some air essence, right? We need a little bit of glass here, and this requires that agglomeratio. I think I'm saying that right. And some of the essences are going to require these, or some of the seeds are going to require this, where you have a combination of items required. But I put this in this side, and you're going to notice it gets sent over there, right? And look at it, it's ending up on the pedestals just like you would expect. And then on this side, I can just have essence in here of the tier that I'm working on currently. And then I put my seed in the middle, and what we'll see happen is this should activate. Well, given that I put the right essence in, right? So we have the inferium. Okay, that all looks correct. Am I missing the redstone? So this is why you need redstone down here. So whenever I place this back, I forgot. And as soon as I do, bam, we have our first seed, right? And so what should happen is when this is finished, the product should end up back over here. And I keep saying should because honestly, anything could go wrong when you're playing with modded. I never know. But this did work, which is perfect. And at this point, my workflow is going to be just making all of these seeds. And then I set this up over here. And this is going to work just like you think it is. It's going to farm up the air essence, and the essence is all going to make its way into the barrel. And I also made a stack upgrade. So this is just going to keep farming, and it's just going to keep passively farming as we work on other things. Speaking of working on other things, I've got a lot of seeds to make. And as much as you probably want to see it, believe me, you don't. It's a process in itself. What I will be doing is just constantly going through here over and over, getting the things I need and just putting it together. Most of the things we are going to have, right? Not all of the seeds are going to be painful to get, but I should have everything except for the ability to make in seeds. So yeah. And also we do have the ability to make these soul jars, but I think this will be something possibly saved for later. Now, once you have all of the basic elements, earth, fire, you also have air, water, and heart, right? Once you have all of those combined, yet you can summon Captain Planet. Okay, that was a joke. Now, there are the odd and end seeds that I will kind of help explain how to get. For example, ice. You can make an entropy manipulator, and to get ice really easily, especially if you have R's and you don't have an ice biome nearby, you can have the break spell and set that break spell, for example, to extract, so long as you have a tier 2, and that will work together. And we just need to use our tank. And if we roll this, we can go ahead and fill this area with water like that, and shift right click, and that will turn it with the manipulator, or the entropy manipulator, into ice. And then of course we can pick it right up, and we only need 4 of these. So that is a pretty handy thing to do. Now, another cool thing, especially later on, we may need snow, right? And you can actually do this with snow too. But snow actually comes from the flowing part. So with the water flowing here, you can use the entropy manipulator and constantly get snow. By the way, this is all automatable later on once we get into just dire things. Now, once you start getting into the tier 3 seeds, that's where things start to get a little bit more fun as we start to produce iron, and we could produce nether quartz and redstone, all these major components. And then we also get these seeds that are custom here that are part of, that are added on by all the mods. And this is the Certus quartz seed. We also have Skystone seed, and it goes even further than that. But for right now, this is where the custom stuff comes in, right? So this does need 1 times compressed Certus, which equates to about 36 Certus quartz blocks. And we just need 4 of those, right? So this is like the first little teensy introduction to what it's going to be like later on. Tell you what though, all of this effort that has gone into making all of these seeds are really going to pay off once we have these mystical agriculture applied energistics seeds up and running. This is where the true power of my ultimate plan is going to come into fruition, and I cannot wait to see what we could do with all of this power. Yes, power. Speaking of power, yes. Things are starting to feel a lot better now. Oh, wait. I can't spoil this yet, but there's a lot to come in the future. Okay, so I've basically started moving into the tier 4. I now have fluic seeds. Oh, this is going to be so good for applied energistics. And I'm also about to enter into the tier 5 area of this. And I think we're going to be able to fit at least 1 seed from all tiers in here. And these are all just the primary main seeds, by the way. And at this point, this is where something huge happens. We gain access to literally unlimited netherite and diamonds. And so I think at this point, this is where the fun really unlocks in mod packs like these, because this is just the stepping stones to getting into the real content of the mod pack, believe it or not. So now with the basic essence under our belt, man, oh man, things are really looking forward. I think next episode, we're going to be working on storage logistics and figuring out how we can store all of this essence and have it accessible from within our applied energistics system. But that is going to have to, of course, wait until next episode. And with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and well, give this video a huge thumbs up. And with that being said, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. That amazing thanks is going to go out to Acid Haze. Thank you so much, by the way, for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. Guys, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching.